5,000 out of 13,000 agents and 38,000 total. That is a huge percentage of the FBI that was focused on that we're going to engage in any conduct or about to engage in any conduct that they're worried about. And so accordingly, they lack standing. What are they even whining about? Emotional distress? What are you talking about? You're making it up in your brains, weirdos. You can't come in and sue under emotionally distressed FBI agents for hypothetical and contingent future injuries. You lack standing. And so your case is hereby dismissed. Get out. The names of 5,000 employees, staffers, and everybody involved in the J6 prosecutions and hoax are now revealed. The DOJ going to get their hands on that spreadsheet, and then they can make some decisions on what to do about it. And this comes after a big battle over these records. And you saw this lawsuit that we've talked about here before. It was now in this case of the John and Jane Does of the FBI, right? They said, we don't want our names, John and Jane Does, out there. We're federal agents. We deserve privacy and security to commit crimes under pseudonyms without any repercussions or accountability inside our own agencies because we're the FBI. And so they sued, and they sued in two different lawsuits. The FBI also has an agents association. Okay, so not only are they government workers with basically no real incentives or disincentives like you'd have in the private markets, but they also then form associations and unions, and they have NGOs, and they have all these people supporting them for all these things. And they're also getting money from the government. So it's wild. So they have their own association, okay? Then they sued. Now, this association in this second lawsuit was brought by these two, and you know who they are. We've seen a lot of them, okay? Organizers of lawfare, in my opinion. Norm Eisen is one of them. You see him all the time on MSNBC with the crazy ladies there. And Mark Zaid. You see him all over X. I think he's on Blue Sky now. He's kind of temper tantruming over on X and is now facing a total and complete loss and obliteration, both of them, because the judge came back down and said that their case is now dismissed. They sued the president saying, you can't give these FBI details. You can't give them to the DOJ. We don't want anyone to know who worked on the J6 cases or tried to rig and ensnare an entire political party in a fake hoax. But their lawsuit to stop Trump from giving those records, dismissed. We'll go through the details, but now we're seeing what it is resulting in. The FBI now turns over details of 5,000 employees who worked on the J6 cases going over to Pam Bondi. Now, the agents were suing and their cases now gone, dismissed. And so we'll see who's on that spreadsheet. Pam Bondi will. Here's what CNN said. FBI officials have complied with demands to give the DOJ the details of thousands of employees who worked on these investigations, according to their sources. The demand has caused consternation among FBI employees who say, well, there might be a possible termination. Obviously, you as an FBI agent have an obligation to pursue justice and uphold the law. You took an oath, you did all the things. So when you then abuse your power to go after innocent Americans and you weaponize the government to do that, there will be consequences for that. Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove in a Friday memo with the subject line terminations had given FBI officials a noon deadline on Tuesday to submit the details of all of these people back to us. Bove previously ordered the firing of 8 senior FBI officials, including those who oversaw a bunch of investigations. Now, more than 5,000 employee details were submitted. All these J6 bureaucrats for 4 years, 5,000 of them. And they got like 1,500 people who ultimately were prosecuted, give or take, which is a lot, but it's really pathetic. Like 5,000 people. So you can't even attribute like a 1-to-1 ratio. It took like 5 of you, it took like, and how many attorneys also are in this? There are more than 13,000 agents and 38,000 total FBI employees. So just look at the numbers on that, okay? 5,000 out of 13,000 agents and 38,000 total. That is a huge percentage of the FBI that was focused on that. Meanwhile, officials dispatched by Elon have been seen at FBI headquarters and was headed up by efforts by Trump's Doge team. Outstanding. But several FBI employees on Tuesday sued the DOJ, saying you can't do this. The very act of compiling list of persons who worked on matters that upset Trump is retaliatory. And this is going to intimidate FBI agents. Yeah, the ones who broke the law. The survey agents were required to fill out, you remember we talked about this when they originally sued. They were supposed to fill out a survey. It's like, where did you work on? What was your job duties over the last 4 years? Let us know. Bove's memo came after 8 firings of senior officials. This was last week, had taken place, officially laid out what appears to be the process that Patel described, and they are now getting delivered, the names. Employees are allowed to stay anonymous in various lawsuits. Yeah, so we'll talk about the lawsuit right now because they just lost their lawsuit and they're going to file new lawsuits and we'll see where it goes. So, but here is where they lost. So these two guys, Mark Zaid, Norman L. Eisen of State Democracy Defenders Fund. Okay, these are the nonprofits that just get tons of money to file lawsuits. And so they sued originally, right? Back in February, as soon as Trump came in, they said, whoa, you can't disclose these people. Stop Trump from disseminating the personally identifiable information. And I think it was these people who were talking about emotional damage. Yeah, it was this FBI. Among others, remember, this was in their complaint, the effects include a risk to their safety. If you tell FBI bosses about who did what, or DOJ bosses about who did what, and who may have broken the law, it's going to damage their professional reputations because they might be found to be criminals and liars and dishonest, so they deserve it. And it might have harm to future employment opportunities, like if they get fired for the FBI for fraud or for abuse of office, yeah. Or in the ability to earn a living. Well, shouldn't have broken the law. And the big one was significant emotional damage, except they called it distress because they didn't want us to make fun of them. Like, we can't say emotional damage because everyone's going to make fun of us on the internet. So they called it, I don't know, it's distress. We know what they meant. The FBI agents are so pathetic that after they broke the law, they need to proceed as pseudonyms, hire lefty super lawyers to stop the rounding up of the names in the investigations of the criminals who were complicit in one of the biggest hoaxes in modern American histories, January 6th. So here was the order that came down. Norm Eisen and Mark Zaid and other FBI Jane and John Does all lose. Trump's and the DOJ's motion to dismiss their garbage lawsuit is granted, and the case is dismissed because we don't have jurisdiction over this. And so all of your requests for your preliminary injunctions are denied as moot, and you can appeal this if you want to. Signed by Judge Gia Cobb in a nice memo that says the following. All right, writes the judge, here's what happened. The FBI agents who worked on January 6th investigations, along with the FBI Agents Associations, bunch of babies, they sue to stop Trump. They don't want agents' names and personal information to be disclosed. They say it's retaliation against us. It's violating our First Amendment. They move. Now Trump says, you have to dismiss this. They're not even stating a claim. Like, they can't sue us for anything. First of all, their claims are too speculative. They don't allege that we're going to engage in any conduct or about to engage in any conduct that they're worried about. And so accordingly, they lack standing. What are they even whining about? Emotional distress? What are you talking about? You're making it up in your brains, weirdos. So she says they have no standing because there's actually no harm. She says, well, they filed these cases in a whirlwind of chaos and fear because they're pathetic. DOJ leadership demanded the names of the FBI agents who worked on the J6 cases, and you would want them all too because they were complicit in a hoax and a cover-up. The FBI refused. Things escalated quickly. The DOJ fired 8 FBI officials for purported weaponization, which was a good start, and agents were required to complete a survey saying, what did you do on the J6 cases? And that was a great strategy because then if they lied about what they did and you just check, oh, well, you lied to us, so now you're gone. And some former J6 defendants, now pardoned and at large, called for the FBI agents to be doxxed, and they thought, we're going to get murdered by all these J6ers. Agents raced to court. They were terrified, says the judge, that they would be at real risk of physical harm if their identities were made public. Now, the parties submitted a consent order under which Trump confirmed, we're not going to publicly disclose these names. No one ever said that. We're just delivering it to the DOJ for management purposes. Now, since then, the judge says the dust has settled some. All right, so in other words, the hysterics from them needs to just chill out. And this case has evolved. Now, Trump moved to dismiss, and the court ordered expedited discovery to cut through the chaos and allow them to shore up their standing allegations so that Norm and Mark could continue to fight for these these emotionally distressed FBI agents before the court resolved the motion. Now, the discovery that went back and forth from Trump that he complied with revealed no evidence at all. No, she puts in italics, no evidence that Trump is on the verge of disclosing any of these hysterical FBI agents' identities, nor have plaintiffs plausibly alleged that such a disclosure is even imminent. The court must therefore dismiss all of these counts because they have no standing to bring the claim. There's no imminent harm. There's nothing going to be damaging. You got the answers you wanted. The harm that you claim is going to happen is not going to happen, as you saw. Now, that leaves these other counts. They say it's retaliation. Oh, no. In their briefs, the FBI agent babies, they contend that Trump is conducting an internal investigations of FBI agents. That's exactly right. Because they believe that they're not loyal to the current administration. No, that's wrong, right? That's your interpretation of it. It's that you're not loyal to the law and you're an unethical and corrupt person and we don't want you in the FBI anymore. You had a home in the last administration, but now you don't. Plaintiffs further argue that the mere fact of being placed under investigation adversely impacts their careers. Tell that to the J6ers that you entrapped and you ensnared and you smeared all over your X account, posting every day. Do you know this person? Do you know this person? But the court cannot assess that claim because it's nowhere in the amended complaint. So those lawyers just forgot to include it in their documents. Oops. The amended complaint alleges that only anticipated employment actions, like terminations or other specified future actions, would violate the First Amendment. And so you lack standing, Norm and Mark and FBI babies. You can't challenge hypothetical contingent actions that haven't happened yet. Can't just make stuff up and sue. And plaintiffs cannot amend their complaints via briefs and change your whole lawsuit. So the court has to dismiss your claims as well. Oh, they're not happy about that. Here's some more enjoyable, juicy bits. The court draws these factual allegations from their second complaint. Okay, so they came back, Mark and Norm, and tried oh, let's fix this, and or maybe the other party did, but there was a second complaint, and they're kind of batched together, right? You saw there's two cases working in parallel. Now, where facts may be relevant to standing, the court just considers the record, and we did a lot. There were motions, there were briefing, and more. And here, she says what happened, is this judge writing, on January 6th, quote, an angry mob stormed the Capitol. And that's not her saying that. She's quoting Judge Jackson in a concurring decision, of course, citing Ketanji. Thank you, Judge. FBI agents from citing ... wait for it, Ketanji. I had to. FBI agents from across the country were called upon to aid DOJ's subsequent investigation. They gathered and executed search warrants. Ultimately, it was nearly 1,600, right? I said 1,500 earlier. It's 15 and plus, so nearly 1,600 with criminal-related activity. Of that, 261 defendants opted to go to trial. 257 were convicted. 4 years later, on January 20th, Trump pardoned all of them, thankfully. The EO stated that the prior administration had engaged in weaponization of political power. They prosecuted more than 1,500 people and dropped all the cases against the BLM rioters, okay? So they just endorse their squad and prosecute other innocent Americans. Now, on January 31st, Emil Bove issued a memo entitled Terminations. The memo stated that the prior administration was weaponizing the federal agencies and said the FBI actively participated in a grave national injustice that has been perpetrated among the American people over the last 4 years. So true. Bove stated that he did not believe that the current leadership of the DOJ can trust these FBI employees in implementing the agenda. And the memo from Emil Bove listed 8 FBI officials by name and directed that they be fired. It closed with the following directive. It said, all right, acting FBI director, you are also directed to identify to the Office of Deputy Attorney General by noon on February 4th all current or former FBI personnel assigned at any time to investigations or to prosecutions relating to January 6th. These lists should include relevant supervisory personnel as well as the people at the headquarters. For each employee included in the list, we want title, office, the person to whom they were assigned, role in the investigation, date of last activity, and more. Upon timely receipt of this, we're going to determine over at the DOJ whether any additional personnel actions are necessary. Music to my ears. Says on Sunday, then they ordered Trump, certain FBI agents, including some, to answer a questionnaire. Fill out this form too. Here's the form. Are you submitting this on behalf of yourself? What's your current title? Are you currently a supervisor? Are you a special agent in charge? Or are you currently an SES employee? What is your title when you participate in investigations, or what was it back on January 6th? Were you a supervisor back on January 6th? Were you an ASAC or SSIA? Were you an SES employee? What division are you currently in? What division are you in when you participated on January 6th? What was your role in the investigation on stuff that led up to or at or near on January 6th. And what was the date of the last activity? Let's go scrape it out, get it all. Around this time, some January 6th pardonees began calling on the administration to fire these people. In fact, Enrique Tarrio said, yeah, FBI agents who testified against him and lied should be made to answer for her crimes, because she got up there. They all thought they were like, kids in a candy store, like, Black Friday where the TVs are free essentially, and everybody's running out with the TVs. They thought, well, Joe Biden's DOJ is here, so we can just testify, say whatever we want about these criminal defendants, lie on the stand, in my opinion, and they demanded recourse, rightfully so. On February 4th, then, 2 lawsuits came in. The FBI came out and said, we are having emotional distress over this. The FBI employs 13,800 special agents, and 12,000 of them, not only do they work for the government, which is like the biggest union on the planet, they then also form their stupid associations too. And the plaintiffs say that we're going to be emotionally damaged. They moved for a TRO. Emil Bove said multiple times, give us this information and report it up immediately. In fact, in February, Pam Bondi issued another memo and said, we are making some distinctions here, okay? Good faith actions by federal employees simply following orders are different. If you're just doing what somebody told you to do, like we'd rather know what you were told to do so we can go after the superior who told you to do the illegal thing. So the court held a hearing. At the time, the parties seemed to agree that the acting director had not provided the names at the time. Now, on February 7th, they negotiated a consent order, and they were going to preserve the status quo while we filed briefings. So then there was a renewed motion from discovery by Norm and Mark. And Trump filed a notice that, okay, all our discovery is complete. We explained everything that we're doing. And so the court held another hearing. On May 13th, Ed Martin, shout out, the newly appointed head of the DOJ's weaponization working group, held a press conference, and he said, we're looking into it. So they filed a notice. They said, Ed Martin's talking garbage. He's saying that if they violated the manuals, that we're going to go get them. They said, you can't do that. We're innocent, emotionally distressed FBI agents. So then they filed a reply. They said, Ed Martin is so dangerous. He's still saying things like, we should name and shame him, right? He said, actually, these guys are scum. Yeah, like Brennan and Schiff, they're actually destroying the country. He said, we got to name and shame. And the FBI agents, their emotional distress just kept continuing to rise, like smoke coming out of their ears. She says, well, here's what they're saying. Okay, Norm and the FBI babies, they're complaining about due process, really, and privacy rights and all these things. But their lawsuit is crap. It doesn't even include allegations that sufficiently support their belief that something bad is going to happen. And now their second set of claims are based around the First Amendment. But again, these are hypothetical. They say that we might be terminated or there might be some bad things that happen to us, but it's in the future. So the court cannot overlook that deficiency, okay, FBI agents, and must therefore dismiss this for lack of standing. You're just making stuff up. Stop hyperventilating, okay? Just go for a walk and touch some grass. Plaintiffs say that Trump is going to disseminate these names to everybody. And so they say stop them from doing that. But the judge is going to say, well, if you're alleging a future injury, like if you're saying something is going to happen in the future, and you really have to establish that that is absolutely going to happen. Like you have a rigorous burden to make that up, and you haven't met that. So they tried to change their complaint. They point to different factual allegations, and she says, well, let's go through them. You say Trump's going to do all these things, but okay, here's what Trump said. Trump said FBI agents are thugs, tyrants, and a Gestapo. And they said, see, he's going to go take him out. But they say those statements say, yeah, there is some animus towards some plaintiffs if Trump said those things, but they don't remotely indicate that he's going to take a particular action here. Like that doesn't mean he's going to like disclose every single name. Are you crazy? So then Norm and Mark and the FBI whiners, they also point to the government's past conduct. They say, well, they have publicly identified other people, and so maybe they'll identify us. And they say, well, the connection between what happened in the past and what might happen in the future is even more attenuated in this case. Even the sole disclosure that involved the employees in the terminations memo is not analogous to what you think is going to happen. They said we fired 8 people, 8 high-ranking people. Now we just want to know who else was involved. But that doesn't mean we're necessarily getting rid of special agents. Bove did not even source these official names from the list at issue. Like the list that you're generating didn't even exist. You got those names from another list. You're upset about that list, and this is a separate list, so it's not the same. And so although you're asking the court to make an inferential leap here, you haven't even argued that memo violates the Privacy Act because that memo is not based upon the list. Now, when it comes to standing, the fact that the administration may have disclosed other names doesn't mean he's going to disclose these names. And you discuss certain cases, they write, Norm and Mark, but those cases are not on point. In that case, this was about cybersecurity protections. Doesn't matter that case. And although past conduct can be relevant, here, the conduct that you say Trump has done in the past is not the same. It's not valid for your new claims. The past events that you rely on are under completely non-analogous circumstances. And the fact that the J6 defendants got pardoned don't match up to any of your alleged injuries. Like, their pardon has nothing to do with what you say is going to be the harm. The court cannot reasonably infer one thing from the other, and so you lose. Now, also the conduct about the survey. They say, well, the survey is coming to a conclusion and that the survey will lead to more damages. But we can't infer that Trump is going to take unlawful actions because somebody hasn't publicly commented on something. She says, oh, anyway, beyond all that, the discovery responses did not even give them anything that they needed to support their claims. According to the responses, the department has not shared a list with anybody, with any non-DOJ person, and they have no intention to do that anyways. In fact, the department has not even accessed the names that the FBI shared with it originally, because we got a court order. And further, discovery turned up no documents related to the intent to disclose anything anyways. And finally, Ed Martin's statements were made. But even assuming that his statements, which did not refer to FBI agents on their face, did apply to them, they don't suggest that the disclosure is certainly impending. He says naming and shaming would be contingent upon finding bad actors or something that did not make sense. Like, we're not going to go and just attack innocent people. That's not the point of this. The determination that the bad acts were not illegal means that they're not going to be charged, because any disclosure is dependent on future acts. The judge says, I can't find that you can make this claim. Now, the court takes Martin at his words. They said, we know Ed Martin wants to name and shame. But when the White House press secretary posts on social media stating that a memo purporting to rescind this, we take that seriously. And so we could infer from the statements, but his statements, specifically in this case, don't attribute to the harm. And it is worth pausing to note, wraps up this judge, in a case where both the facts and the law are hotly contested, the parties do agree on something. They say, we don't want to release the names to the public. It could put him at risk of serious physical danger. The executive director of the FBIAA agrees that if we disclose this, it's going to be harmful. We're all going to die. We know you're all going to have emotional distress. The court makes this observation because it understands why they're afraid, because they're FBI babies. The court understands why and why they want assurances, and understands why more assurances would be good. But just because you want more assurances doesn't mean what they're doing is illegal. And your First Amendment claims are also ridiculous. You say they launched this investigation for loyalty, but that's not what your complaint says. The amended complaint references the review process, and so your complaint is a little off here. Your briefs are complaining about things that are not in your complaint. The court thus does not understand your insistence that termination is not part of the counts. We read your complaint the same way Trump does. Your First Amendment claims are brought because you fear retaliation, but the court has already explained why you can't challenge any future disclosure, saying the court, therefore, is going to dismiss all these counts and your other count fails for the same reason. Saying, once again, the FBI agents have failed to allege any adverse action is either imminent or certainly impending, and they lack standing to bring their claims. You can't come in and sue under emotionally distressed FBI agents for hypothetical and contingent future injuries. You lack standing. And so your case is hereby dismissed. Get out. And your motion for a temporary restraining order is hereby denied. Norman Mark lose, courtesy of Gia M. Cobb, and the emotionally distressed FBI agents now have their names being delivered to the DOJ. And as we got lectured by them many times before, no one is above the law. So we'll keep our eye on this one. We'll see if they appeal it. They probably will. And we'll see if the firings start as they should. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do.